We'll get started with part one on technology marketing and communicating value proposition of the technology. Today we have with us Dr. Anu Narasimhan, who is Professor of Practice and Head of Desai Sethi School of Entrepreneurship at IIT Bombay. She is also ex-VP Marketing, Britannia Industries Limited. She works in technology transfer and startups with 24 years in corporate strategy and marketing. She now leads startup programs, helping innovators grow. She mentors founders, women leaders, and brand managers while serving on global boards. An IIT Bombay and IIM Bangalore alumnus with a doctorate from SMU, she has won top awards for her work. Passionate about problem solving and ecosystem building, she helps connect research with industry to turn ideas into real world solutions. Next slide, please. We all know now Dr. Premnath. He is Director Venture Center and Head INSIL Innovations at CSI NCL. He is a leader in technology transfer, IP commercialization, and venture creation. He has shaped national policies and established award-winning innovation management initiatives, fostering technology commercialization, startups, and deep tech incubation across India through CSI NCL and Venture Center. With this, I would request Dr. Premnath and Dr. Anu to kindly take over and share their screen for the lecture.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pragna. I think, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yeah. You're audible.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Anu, for participating in this. I'm grateful that you are bringing in, an in-depth view of sales and marketing, which normally many people in this field typically are not familiar with. So I look forward to that. But let me get the session started. Okay. Okay. Pragna, please tell me if it's full screen.
It's full screen.
Okay, good. So today's session, we are going to cover a little bit about marketing, technology marketing, followed by policies by Dr. Chinchure. So let me first start with this part of the session. I'll talk for a few minutes about technology marketing and its role in tech transfer. Following that, I'll request Anu to speak about a very important aspect of technology marketing, which is clearly outlining and communicating the value proposition of what is being offered. And there are many tools which have been developed to do some of these things, and she will, and this is done across different fields, and she'll be able to tell you, some of the best practices in the industry in general in terms of marketing and sales, and you will probably be able to relate that to how one could use that in technology marketing as well. Following that, I'll just give a very short example of one case of communicating value propositions. Then we'll get into another segment where we'll talk a little bit about the sales funnel, about advancing, about how a systematic sales process or a marketing process can be put in place. And then finally, we'll have another short example of that from our own experiences in TechX with tech marketing as well. So let me get started with this. Overall, here is a slide which sort of outlines many of the roles that TTOs play. On the left, you have a box which has a long list of different activities. It could go from awareness, training, enabling policies. You'll hear about policies today. Identifying, sourcing the technology assets, IP protection and management, patent analytics for decision support. There might be something to do with technology translation and readiness. Nowadays, if you look at many tech transfer offices around the world, they're also hosting funds for proof of concept funding, right, to advance the technology readiness level. This is not, this is something which is now becoming mainstream. And it's not just external funds, but internal funds as well. You could have technology assessments which allow you to strategize and how you want to go with it. Ashley talked about what he called as a first look report in a previous lecture. Then there's technology marketing, which will be the subject matter for what we discussed today. You could have in this process, you're essentially advancing a lead closer to a deal, right? You'll end with a an act of deal making of some kind. There will be some agreements, there will be negotiations to be done, there will be some valuations backing up some of your thought process in terms of what it is worth and what kind of a deal you can strike. And then beyond that, there'll be post-deal contract lifecycle management. And there are specialized modes of commercialization, including tech venturing, and supporting that might be seed funds. I see today that many global tech transfer offices also host seed funds, which is something which in the past was not inside the tech transfer office. And there may be other models of technology commercialization as well, which we will not get into today. But an example of this could be something to do with, say, for example, patents which form part of a standards, for example, 5G telecommunications, and you have a group of patents which form part of that, and the commercialization process might be very different than what you're typically used to. On the right, I've tried to break it up into different parts, right? And we often find that these are handled in buckets in different offices. Some may be focused only on IP protection and portfolio management. Some others might be focused on valorizing technology assets, and typically that's a translation activity that happens, technology translation activity that could happen in certain organizations. And then, of course, one big box on technology marketing and transactions, which includes all of these listed here, and perhaps a fourth one on venturing and other routes to market. Sometimes the incubator could be a subset of a tech transfer office, but it's more of a spin-out activity rather than a standalone incubator, which can be part of a tech transfer activity as well. Now, if I take this and I try to map out the skill sets for people who are involved in these activities, I just wanted to focus on the box on tech marketing and transactions here. And you will see that one of the top skill sets would be to actually be able to do a good value proposition analysis. And what that means, I will try to explain in some in brief, and then Anu will explain it in much greater detail. Clearly, as previous speakers have spoken, communication skills, communicating effectively what is not only the value that is being created, but also being able to communicate when you're to clients, to be able to build a relationship, to take ahead conversations, all become important part of this activity as well. Advancing a lead, developing it further, and then leveraging your networks to basically create those opportunities, all become important aspects of a tech transfer office's activities and the kind of training that people need to have as tech transfer professionals. Okay. So first, let's talk about what is it that a tech transfer office is actually transacting, right? There can be many things, by the way, but I'll focus on especially the technology package. And in that, I'll focus primarily on know-how and patents. But there are many other things. For example, certain organizations will have data which can be transacted. Some organizations will have access to a collection of samples which could be transacted. So there are multiple things that people can transact. So first of all, let me talk about know-how. And this is my definition of a know-how. It's essentially a recipe, right? A recipe to do something, and which is of general use. So it's knowledge of how to do a certain task or carry out a certain process or make or produce something useful. And it's essentially know-how and not just the knowledge that we create, maybe in a discovery process where we are just discovering how exactly something works. And you can have two ways in which you may, you may go ahead with it. If you choose, you could publicly disclose it. And if it's freely available to everybody, then there won't be a case for transacting it, right? If it's in public domain. On the other hand, you could also choose to disclose it under a confidentiality agreement. And if you can enforce a confidentiality agreement, that is something which could be part of a transaction. People would disclose it under a confidentiality agreement within their company, with employees, with consultants, and so on and so forth. But they could also choose to disclose it to a partner or a licensee, right? And that could, and when they're doing it with a licensee, it could be part of a transaction that is involved. On the other hand, a patent is not necessarily the know-how, right? It's actually a right to exclude others from practicing the art disclosed in the patent, right? It's a very different different asset compared to know-how, right? It's essentially a right to exclude others from practicing the art disclosed in that particular patent. And of course, the deal with the government is that you will publicly disclose it. So remember that it gets disclosed, right? So in 18 months' time, roughly, most patents get published, which means it's in the public domain. And you have a limited period of time where you have a right to enforce this right of excluding others from practicing this art without your permission. Okay, so these are two different asset classes. Now let's look at possible combinations of this. The reason I bring this up is that there's often a misconception in many organizations that there is a one-to-one relationship between a technology or know-how and a patent. Okay, and there isn't any such actual one-to-one relationship. In fact, it can be pretty complex in the way both are related to each other. In this chart, I'm trying to show you basically a few situations. You could have a situation where you have a know-how, that's a recipe, and a patent to go with it, which one or more, which protects some part of the recipe, right? You could also have a situation where there is no know-how and only patent rights, and that also could be transacted. In fact, we have cases in my own experience in NCL where we have transacted a patent without any know-how. Okay, it was used for something which we never anticipated would be an application, but that's how it is, right? There are also cases where you can have know-how and no patents, right? Which is the box on the left bottom out here. And of course, if there's no know-how and no patents, there's no deal to be made at all, right? Now, you can have all of these possible situations. It's very often a misconception if you try to do a one-on-one kind of mapping with each other. So let me just build on that a little bit with a schematic to illustrate a few possibilities. So take the case, say that this disk you have in the middle is your know-how. It's a scope of your know-how. That means this is the recipe that you have put together to carry out a certain task, right? And it was built on knowledge which is available on freely to everybody. There's nobody claiming a stake on it. So majority of it is, say, free prior art. Basically things which nobody will assert it on you and stop you from practicing it. But there is this one patent out here, patent 1, that you see, which is a base piece of information which is protected. And in this case, fortunately, by you, and therefore you're able to use it for your know-how. So in this case, you have a background know-how, background patent, which is important for your know-how, but a bulk of it is practiced with knowledge which is already available. Now, on top of this, you choose to build further IP. So you could build another patent out, which say, for example, if it was a polymer and you discovered that it could be used as a rheology modifier in a cosmetic application, then that would be a specific patent that you file for a given, formulation or use for a particular for the polymers that you have developed. The polymer is the one that the synthesis of the polymer is your specific know-how. While you're doing all of this, you might choose to have certain parts of your know-how as trade secret, and certain other pieces of your know-how you might actually choose to disclose publicly intentionally so that nobody is able to file a patent on it, right? This is also possible, right? So all of these situations are possible, and it's important to understand that a patent is a different asset class than the know-how itself and not confuse the two. Okay, so let's continue further. So in most cases, when you're licensing a technology, what is being transacted is number one, a know-how with presumed freedom to operate. You're not giving assurances as an academic organization that it is free to operate, that nobody will sue you for it, but it's presumed that it is, and it's presumed that the licensee will go and do the exercise of figuring out that it is free to operate. And number two, there's a right, if there's a patent, there's a right to exclude others from practicing the art. So there are valid patent rights available, and that gives them a source of sustainable advantage for which they are willing to pay, right? Or they're willing to subscribe to that right as well. Please remember that you could have a situation where this right is just a background IP and you allow the know-how to be utilized by somebody else. You're essentially saying that I will not assert my IP on or a patent on your use of that know-how, right? So that's also possible. And there might be other parts of the transaction. For example, a licensee may say, will you help me with scale up? Will you help me with laboratory work while I'm commercializing it? Will you provide me samples and so on and so forth? So there might be many other things that might be part of a typical transaction in a typical tech transfer, right? So in this process, when you're trying to talk to potential licensees, you will often find that there is a different language that the inventors use and a different set of completely different language that the industry uses. And that mismatch is very often something which you will notice as tech transfer professionals. You'll often find that inventors will talk about, oh, my process is different than anybody else. It's unique, right? It's the first of its kind. Or it is the latest contemporary science. It uses, say, click chemistry, which nobody else uses. Or they'll talk about features, that this is something which, is the shortest reaction possible, and so on and so forth. And of course, about peer recognition that, oh, so-and-so wrote to me saying that this is a great piece of science, right? Whereas the industry doesn't care for many of these things at all, right? So they are going to talk a different language. And what they are going to talk about is what are the benefits to the industry or the end user? So what are the rewards that they can look forward to? What are the benefits compared to other alternatives that they have access to? What are the risks? What are the costs? And what is the business impact, right? So risks include, for example, will I get sued? Do I have freedom to operate, right? Do you have a patent which is strong enough that nobody can bypass it? And all of those. And on the other side, there might be costs which are actually, may not have been your concern at all when you were thinking or when you were developing this in the first place. So here is an example. We recently ran what the TechX calls a technology matchmaker. It was on process innovations in pharmaceutical industry, in pharmaceuticals, and the industry participants were all from the pharma industry, and the inventors were all typically chemists and pharmaceutical chemistry specialists. When we dug deeper into the technologies, all of them very good scientists spoke about them doing a particular reaction in a minimum number of steps, right? They would talk about what's called atom economy, right? Which is considered very important for creating sustainable green chemistry, right? They would talk about, say, it being continuous flow processes rather than a batch process, right? But when we went and spoke to our industry experts to understand what they would like to hear, right? The primary focus was, is this the lowest raw material cost process, right? And do they have freedom to operate? Now you can see a complete mismatch in the language, right? Because inventors are talking about features and industry was talking about benefits, right? And it's this translation of language that we refer to as creating a value proposition, okay, for what you're offering. In this case, a technology offering. Before I go ahead, let me just tell you that when we are doing these transactions in the case of tech transfer, you can think of it as having, you have to remember that there could be two levels of customers over here. So you have to understand, of course, when you're doing any kind of sales, that you have to identify who the customer is. Here, there's a licensor who is licensing to a licensee at one level, and the licensee has the option of making, say, for example, if they're synthesizing a sugar alternative, a sweetener, they would have multiple technologies they could choose from, right? And they could, even for a given product, they could have multiple process technologies to choose from. So they have a various variety of choices to pick from. They could also choose from multiple vendors or multiple providers of technology. And then when they are looking at it, they are also comparing various process technologies available to them. But at the end of the day, they are going to produce a product which might be, being sold to different types of customers. Say one set of customers is, say, Starbucks, which makes coffee, right? Another set of customers might be somebody who is making ice cream, right? Now, the requirements might be completely different, right? And the alternate products that they have at the disposal, the kind of benefits that they require out of it might be different. The taste preferences might be different. And therefore, they need to think about each customer and define for each customer what exactly are the value propositions and against whatever are the alternative products available to that particular end user. So this is something which we have to keep in mind when we are developing a value proposition for many of these technologies that we talk about. So now I'll hand it over to Anu, who has, of course, she does a lot of study, research, teaching on this subject. Uh, she comes from an industry which is known for its marketing and sales. So over to you, Anu, and you can take
Thank
it
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Premnath. I'm actually very happy to be here and appreciate Dr. Premnath to invite me for this. And I have two reasons to be happy about being here. One is genuinely that even at a prestigious institute like IIT Bombay, we probably file anywhere from 200 to 250 intellectual properties in a year, but I think less than 10% actually go to market and make an impact. So I'm delighted to be speaking to all of you who will help the larger scientific technological organization into taking research into market. So that's that's the primary reason I'm happy to be here. The second is that this word called marketing and sales somehow has this aura of being mysterious and mystique, and it's actually extremely commonsensical. So I'm going to try over the next maybe 7, 8 slides to make it as relatable as possible. Can I move a slide, please? Actually, what marketing does is answers two questions, only two questions. The questions are why buy me and who am I? And when why buy me becomes so clear that consumers don't need to write the line at all, then it becomes a brand and you can see a symbol called Tata. I don't need to explain why buy me for Tata. If we go to any consumer in India, they will say trust. The moment you show the logo, they will say trust. So the why buy me over time translates to who am I? But today I'm not going to focus on the who am I at all. I'm going to focus on the why buy me, which is what all of you are interested in. And like Premnath said, from two levels. One is the immediate licensee that you are going to be selling to, and the use case, the end user who's going to be utilizing that technology. So there are three, all of us from a science math background like Venn diagram. So here is a Venn diagram with three circles. One says, what is it that customers want? What is it that you can provide? And what is it that competitors cannot provide? So that sweet spot is really a very, very small sweet spot, which is in between of all of these three circles. And, when we try to write why buy me, we often end up writing a whole story and people don't relate to it. So there are two things that are needed. You have to write it in an extremely clear manner. And the second is you have to write it in a very evocative manner, which means in a storytelling manner. People don't remember formulae. I mean, people don't remember. They want to remember, like Premnath has said a few times so far, which is we don't remember the features, we remember the benefits. So how is it that you can craft your value proposition both for the licensee and for the end user in the context of not features, but benefits? Couple of examples I will show you as we go along. Can I move a slide, please? So what are value propositions? They describe why somebody should buy a product. If I were to ask you this question in the context of a product that you buy, whether it is someone ordering on a Swiggy or somebody buying anything on Amazon, we all know the answer to the question. You have to think about the answer, not from your point of view, not from the salesperson's point of view, but from the buyer's point of view. Why should a customer buy the product? That is the first and most important. The second is actually about who is the customer. So I actually make this joke in my classes all the time that only Mukesh Ambani and his family can say all Indians are my customers. The rest of us have no right to say anything like that. So we have to segment our customers to get tighter and tighter so that we are not spraying in the dark and shooting in the dark and trying to figure who our customer can be. So even before you start selling, you need to figure who is that customer segment who is most likely to be the buyer of your product. And again, the two steps that Premnath alluded to, which is the immediate person who's you will transfer the technology to, and the end user who will finally end up using that technology. And nothing matters if you are a Me Too product. Nobody buys a Me Too product. You have to be either faster, you have to be cheaper, you have to offer higher benefits. So you have to demonstrate superiority to a competitive product. These are value propositions. They can be quantitative. Typically in quantitative, we will tell you, we are better than this, or we offer this benefit higher. When they become qualitative, where they solve life's problems, then people don't even ask this comparative question of why are you better than competition. All of those happen when we are talking at the lowest level, and I'll show you in my next slide how can you go about doing this. Can I just move to the next slide? So here is, I have worked all my career on the market pull side. So where we have had a discoverable problem, and then we have built a product for it. All of you work on the left-hand side where the invention is available, and now you need to go find a use case for it. I like to differentiate between the words invention and innovation. Invention is something that all scientists create in their labs. When that gets adopted, when that gets accepted, is when it becomes an innovation. There is no right or wrong answers. The best example I know of a technology push product is the humble Velcro. The humble Velcro is on my watch strap, it's on my footwear, it's on bags and so on. But it originally came from extremely high-end space research done by NASA. And so once you have a technology, you have to go looking for a use case for it. And which is the best use case, whether the ice cream or the coffee that we were referring to earlier, is for you to find out. No right and wrong answers, but you still have to go to your customers to figure out what is the value proposition for the technology that you have. Dr. Premnath, next slide, please. So very simply put, value is the usefulness, worth, relevance, and think of it, you're driving in a hot area, most of India is hot, you don't have a bottle of water in your car, even though you had told your whoever you are traveling with to do. So half of it is the fact that there is no water. The other half of it is saying, oh my God, but I already thought of it and told you, but you did not do it, which is typically how I feel when I travel with my husband. So the value of that bottle of water that I see in a dhaba is not the 20 rupees that is MRP, but is a number that is significantly higher than that MRP. And that is what you need to strive for. Price is what people will give you for it, but value is what they will get out of it. And again, it has to be relevant in the context of a customer segment. My next couple of slides show you a customer segment. So here are value propositions. They can be a long product, which can be quality, features, performance. They can be price. Price does not have to be the cheapest. Price can be fair. Price can be consistent. Price can be reasonable. In fact, price can be the highest value also. Intrinsic to product is price. You can't say I have the best quality product and the lowest price. I mean, there is something discordant with that thought. It is possible to be. I mean, it's possible that you have such high scale that you have the lowest costs. But even though you have the lowest cost, if you have great quality, you should not sell it at the lowest price. So price and product intrinsically go together. So never undersell your product, never undersell the technology that you have. Access or availability, service is one dimension. For example, you could be selling to a licensee who does not just want a one-time sale, but wants a repeat service and so on and so forth. So the differentiation could come from service. It could come from the customer experience that they have with you. It does not always have to come from product or price. Examples coming up, Dr. Premnath, next slide, please. I'm sorry about the size of this icons here, but it's a sheet that you should look at and work with. So this is from a business to consumer point of view. It's a chart made by a consulting company called Bain. So at the lowest order of the pyramid, we have functional needs that are being met. So in human lives, roti kapda makan is our very basic needs that are being met. Today, of course, we say roti kapda makan or Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi has become so much a basic need of humankind. But what this pyramid shows you is that most people can satisfy needs at the lowest end of the pyramid, which are called functional needs. And as you go higher up the pyramid is where you make more profit and where you make more revenue. So look at the some of the values written at the top. So this says provides hope. So life-changing, it provides hope. Imagine providing hope and being different from saving time. So consumers, customers, your own licensees, they will all value as you make a difference in people's lives. So this is business to consumer. I'll show you a business to business, which is on the next slide. And here is one that you would relate to. So you have to think about your licensee and their end user. And here again, the functional needs are saves time, saves money. But as you go up, you can see network expansion. You can see alignment to the vision. So you have to find a way of crafting the value proposition for the know-how or the patent or the technology that you are intending to market or sell, and see how it can go up this ladder and not stay at the bottom of the pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, it can be easily copied. At the bottom of the pyramid, you get bottom of the pyramid prices also. So please consider that you should not try and solve the lowest common denominator of problem. You need to offer more and more, which is as you go higher up the pyramid. These slides will be available to you, I'm sure, and therefore you should take a look at it and see where your technology can fit in the context of the end user and in the context of the licensee. So how do we create our value proposition? I'm going to use a relatable example. All of us have used transportation. So the customer job as far as transportation goes is going from place A to place B. So going from IIT Bombay, where I work, to my house or to my parents' house, which is, let's say, 5 kilometers down the road. So what are the pains in that? The pains is, yes, there are buses, but they are few and far in between. And by the time I get into a bus and get out of a bus, I'm sweating and I've, get to my mother's place in a very unhappy mood. So that's one pain I can talk about. The pain of being in Bangalore. I don't know how many of you are from Bangalore or smaller towns, whatever. Bangalore is not a smaller town any longer, but the auto driver is an enigma. The pain of an auto ride is to try and figure out where does he want to go to. So I get into an auto and I tell the guy, Bhaiya, aapko jahan pe jane ka, I'll go with you and then I'll take another one, because anywhere that I want to go, the auto guy doesn't want to go. So this is another pain that I have experienced in transport. The pain of taking your own car, all of you understand, the pain of it is parking, the pain of it is driving, wasting your time, which you could have spent on something else. And what can relieve these pains? Uber and Ola relieve these pains. So Uber allows you, Uber or Ola, whichever is the one that you are more used to, comes to your house. Instead of you walking to the bus stop or you having to walk to an auto, there is no negotiation that you do with an Uber guy. Negotiation is on the app. It tells you 325 rupees, take it or leave it. You can do Uber X, you can do whatever. So all of these pains that customers are facing are relieved, which is the pain reliever. And at the fundamental level, you need to relieve pain of your customer and your customer's customer. The bonuses are called gains. So as a woman who travels alone in the evening and the night, one of the best features that I like about Uber and Ola is the ability to share my location at any point of time with a family member or a friend. That was, I mean, it was a gain creator. It was a bonus. Today's bonus on Uber, for example, is it will tell you whether type A will come before type B. So I don't have to keep guessing whether I should order a Uber X or an auto or so on. So you have to list for yourself what are the pains your customer is facing, and again, the pains that your end user is facing. How is it that your technology can solve those pains? People buy for pain relievers, but people stay for gain creators. I'm going to repeat that statement. They buy us because we relieve the pain in their lives, but they stay with us because we add gain to them, we add bonuses to them. So I gave you a very simple one because it's relatable. All of us have used Uber, Ola, autos, buses, trains, cars, etc. in our life. But you can attempt to do this using the same thing. What is the job that needs to be done by the person by the company you're selling the license to, and for their end user? So I suggest that all of you should attempt this, even for an older example, just to get familiar with the framework and concept. Dr. Premnath, I think I have a couple of slides more. So how do we create? I use that example, which was what are the pains? How can you relieve the pain? What could potentially be bonuses? And those are gain creators. Very important to keep track of the fact that we are differentiated. We are the only people who are offering it, and competition is not offering it, or competition is not offering it as well. So this is how we create our value proposition. It's easier to explain, and that's why I use the consumer example, but the frameworks are the same. The frameworks are no different at all for technical marketing or for consumer marketing. You can use the same things that I've just shown you. So I think, Premnath, this is just an example. I'm sure if I asked you to type in the chat which company or product or brand this is, all of you will know the answer. So when it becomes so clear, which is it's the world's largest search engine, it allows internet users to find relevant information quickly and easily. All of us know the answer. Can you attempt to write this for the know-how or the patent or the technology that you're wishing to transfer or to sell to a licensee? Yeah, Google, absolutely. I didn't even, I can see many Googles flow up. Yeah. So how do you make yourself so clear and so evocative? Those are the two words that you have to. The communication is simply about why buy me as clearly as possible and as storytelling as possible, as evocatively as possible. I'm going to stop here and hand back to Premnath and perhaps come back for the sales funnel later.
Thank you. Did you want to finish these slides?
No,
also?
This is good. I think these were covered in the pyramid, so we can pass this. You can pass this.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just quickly give you an example. So recently we had a case where we had an inventor who had a new drug for migraine. Okay, that was the invention. And this is what we heard from the inventor. The inventor said, it's a new drug for migraine. It's plant-based, it's natural, can be formulated as a nasal spray, and it has a low cost of production, right? These were some of the advantages that they posed to us, right? Now, let's look at it from a pharma company perspective, who would have been a potential licensee, right? In this case, if you were to go and ask, say, another company which is into the space of manufacturing and selling drugs for migraine and other pains, here is how they would have thought about it, right? So they would want to see what is the efficacy compared to other alternatives, right? So there are best of class alternatives available in the market already. There are well-known drugs with well-known mechanisms of action, and they would want to see how this compares with a given product. They also would think of it in two different ways. So a pharma company would ask, oh, there are two use cases. One is one of prevention. right? That means the person sprays something early in the morning so that the whole day they don't have a migraine, okay? Because they're scared of getting a migraine during the day. And another use case is where they have a pain and they want to somehow reduce the pain, right? And these are two different use cases, because in one case, the dosage might be different. It might be the way they formulate it might be different. It may need to act faster or slower in one case, right? And obviously, if you're already in pain, you would want it to act faster, right? If it was precautionary, you would want to make sure that it lasts the whole day and it's not effective only for a very short period of time, right? Now, all these are the kind of questions that a pharma company is coming up with. There'll be questions which relate to, say, safety, right? Is it safe, right? Are there any side effects, right? Do you feel drowsy? Can the person drive after taking this medication, right? Are there any contraindications? Can a person who is on diabetes medication take it? Can a person who is on cardiovascular medication take it, right? They may ask the question whether you have freedom to operate. That means, am I infringing anybody else's patent, right? In which countries am I infringing it, right? These are questions which a typical inventor may not have thought about at all. They might ask about patent protection. How strong is it? What is the life of it? How old is your patent? Do I have enough life to make enough money for the investments that I'm going to make in advancing it to the market? What is the potential upside, right? Financial upside. Is this, as you might be guessing, it's quite possible that the use case 1 is a much larger market than the use case 2. Right? And therefore, if I was positioning it for use case 1, maybe they will look up and consider it a little more favorably than if I was positioning it for a use case 2. Sometimes tech transfer professionals have to also think through this in terms of which is the use case you want to actually present to your potential licensee. What is the investment? What's the cost? What's the risk? For example, if I could find a regulatory pathway where I claim equivalence to another product which is already in the market, it considerably reduces my cost of regulatory approvals, right? If that is possible, then it could be the investment is much lower and the risk to the licensee is lower and the returns are possibly higher in proportion. Right? And in this particular case, it turned out that there is a product in the market which is currently in vogue, which is called a CGRP antagonist, which reduces vasodilation. That means the vessels, the dilation of it is getting reduced, and that by the expansion of it is one of the causes of migraine, and that's a preferred route. So people were looking for specifically molecules which can do this and not other mechanisms of action for migraine, right? And therefore, if you were aware of this, you could position it with a licensee very clearly, and therefore have an advantageous position over there. Incidentally, the reason this is important, this particular mechanism of action is important, is because in this field, side effects and contraindications are extremely important, right? People want a product which can be used across the board by everybody without worrying too much about what else is going to happen or what are the other medications that they are taking. Now, understanding this requires a little bit of a deep dive into the use case, right? And into the customer's mind, which is something which many tech transfer professionals sometimes do not do enough of, and it requires a little bit of research. And we often find in practice that some of these insights, some you can collect on your own, but some of these you will get by talking to experts in the field. So in fact, one of the key aspects of the first look report that Ashley talked about is about interviewing experts to understand what are the real issues in the field and how you can actually position a particular technology for a particular licensee. Okay, so I think this is an example I wanted to give you, and this would get converted by a tech transfer professional into a set of advantages or value propositions in a technology brief. A technology brief would say state a particular technology that is available, and there'll be certain advantages which will be listed. The one in the middle is one from the MIT Tech Licensing Office, and you will see a segment on advantages, which, by the way, looks very brief. It's meant to be brief, but often involves considerable background work to get to those few advantages that you want to list over there. Similarly, here as well, in this case, is a biosimilar. The molecule is already known, so we didn't need to talk about, say, on the left, we didn't need to talk about, say, what good the biosimilar could do, but we needed to say that, compared to other processes to make that biosimilar, how do we differ, and what kind of time, cost, and all of that is involved in making it, right? And this gets converted to something like a spotlight very often. So TechX, for example, puts out some of these briefs, but then also puts out these spotlights occasionally for a quick messaging for people who might be viewing it on various channels like social media, email, and so on and so forth as well. Okay, so let me move on to the next segment, which is about generating leads and progressing along the sales funnel. So I'll hand it over to Anu again, who will give us some basic concepts about how a sales funnel is worked by people in marketing and sales, and how the same thing can be adapted to technology marketing. And I'll come back a little later to show you a very quick example before we close this session. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So the first one again is target customers. None of us are the Ambanis, so we need to be tight. We need to define our target customers. On my next slide, and when we go there, you will see how customers can be defined. So let's say our target customers are pharma companies based in Pune, serving the needs of migraine. They currently don't serve the needs of migraine. So you generate a list, maybe the list is 50 or 60, and then you start lead generation. Lead is not just the name of a company. Lead includes who is the right person in the company to be reaching out to. And it's usually never just one person. It is at least two people. Do you talk to the technology person? Do you talk to the business person? Those are choices you will make. And more often than not, you will talk to both of them before deciding which of them is more likely to. So lead generation is not as simple as just writing an Excel sheet with the list of companies that you have found. Lead nurturing takes a long amount of time. Lead nurturing, people say in the US that they play golf with people that they want to go sell to. We don't have to play golf, but we certainly need to understand what are the challenges that their companies are facing and how could we fit in their lives. So you have to nurture leads for a long period of time. Deal closure, all of us understand what it means. And farming an account. Farming an account is actually, people incorrectly believe that sales is a hunter's job. That, selling is about hunting, is about the thrill of a hunt. Actually, it's the thrill of a hunt followed by the thrill of a farm, which means that you have to grow that account. Not only the best businesses come from growing their account, growing accounts, not by finding a new customer every time. So the customer acquisition cost is very high. You'd much rather farm your account, which means using the same account, you nurture them, you water them, you fertilize them so that they grow with you. A lot of this, there are softwares available for, Salesforce being the best of them, but I'm not here to recommend software to you. I'm here to recommend that this process needs to be followed. It can be on your phone, it can be on an Excel sheet, it doesn't matter. But at any point of time, you should know where in the funnel you are or your selling process is. On the next slide, Dr. Premnath, do you know your segment, which is whether it's a buyer, user, decision maker? I can pass this. I want to show them the next one, which has these are the criteria. So just look at the right-hand side, which is criteria for business to business. How do you define your customer? What is the total sale value that they have? Do you define them by how large they are in terms of number of employees? Do you define them by domain or industry? How many locations are they present in? How old or new are their businesses? Which are the markets they serve? So those are what are called demographics. In B2C, demographics are like income, education, geography, where do you live, and so on. But for you, you need to target by the size of an organization. One last.
Yeah, sorry.
The psychographics of an organization are they risk averse? If they are risk averse, they may take the nasal spray, which is a preventive one, not the one which is a higher dosage and a smaller segment of society that can buy them. But please understand, a preventive nasal spray will, a preventive migraine nasal spray, you will charge at X, but one that is solution oriented will sell for 1.5 to 2 times X. So please understand, product and price are intrinsically combined together. You can't separate the two. So this is how you segment your market and you generate leads. And my next slide now, Dr. Premnath.
Yeah.
And where in your sales funnel is the challenge? Very often we find that we have lots of leads, but they are not qualified. What does a qualified lead mean? A qualified lead means somebody is willing to meet you or somebody has reached out to you. More often than not, incoming leads are better than outgoing leads. So if I were you, I would have a blog, I would have a podcast, I would have a website, which is educating people on the problem. People don't want to be sold the solution immediately. People want to be educated on the problem. And the moment they hear a problem which is of their own, their heads will be nodding so much that they will reach out to you. So where is it in this process that you are currently? And how is it that you can use technology a little better to qualify your leads and start with hunting and end up with farming is the typical sales funnel. So this is all I wanted to teach you, to talk to you about in the context of a sales funnel. Dr. Premnath, I think you had an example you wanted to,
Sure. I think I'll close with a quick example and a few principles in tech marketing, which I can draw from here. So in practice, when we are doing tech marketing, there are two large approaches. One is the spray and pray kind of approach, where you're essentially putting it out everywhere, websites, portals, social media, mailing lists, advertisements. And this is something which many of our tech transfer offices probably do in some measure or the other. And the other is one of targeted marketing, right? And the targeted marketing involves, of course, finding the right people to send or talk to, right? Decision makers in the right identified companies. Referrals, often taking referrals from industry experts. So if you have an advisory group which tells you that this company might be interested, that is worth probably a lot more than efforts put in for a year to try and find the identified company, right? So it's important to build this panel of people who you can take advice from time to time. We have also looked at industry-specific showcases where you're able to draw everybody from one industry segment, right? So that you at least have a little better chance of getting a hit when you showcase that particular technology. I often find that many tech transfer offices are not publishing articles, even small magazine articles in industry magazines. After all, industry is the taker for some of these technologies, but we are not necessarily showcasing them over there. Trade shows, industry conferences are also extremely important. By the way, there's a general, as a statistic, I can tell you that very often, even in the US, many of the leads actually come from the inventors themselves. Okay, but the inventors they draw upon their industry projects, people who they work with, the kind of industry clients that they are familiar with, or the industry conferences that they go to get some of those leads as well. And it's important that the inventors get a chance to present in industry conferences. This doesn't mean a scientific conference. This means basically somewhere where the industry gets together and is willing to listen to new developments in the field that can be of use. Generally speaking, the lessons we have is on the left here, spray and pray works well for really reputed organizations, right? So if it's an MIT, people might go there and ask for technologies, right? In the Indian context, the IITs the older IITs have a benefit of that as well, right? And trust matters, track record matters. Sometimes your alumni matter, right? But on the other hand, here in targeted marketing, it's very much about networks. So a very important skill set for most people in tech marketing is to build networks. And in tech marketing, you have to build networks with technology scouts in different industries. Different companies have technology scouts or people who are at the CTO level looking for new technologies. Here is, I'll close with this technology marketing funnel, which basically is similar to what Anu spoke about, but the data that we have put here is about total number of about 118 technologies, which the TechX group was marketing this is a small study as a sample size. You can see that they were able to get about 279 EOIs. They qualified it down to 228, but these were targeted, so the proportion is fairly large, right? They were able to get to term sheets and so on. So for 81 cases, negotiated, vetted 48, and finally closed 27. So that's about 10% of what came in at the top of the funnel, right? And I think they were quite lucky to get even 279 for 118. But these are just representative numbers. But the idea is to systematically do this, and you can do this in an Excel sheet or in CRM as well. So I think with that, I will stop. This is probably my last slide. So thank you very much. Anu, I think if you don't mind, I'll hand it over to Pragnya. Probably in the interest of time, we won't take too many questions right now, but she can go ahead with a quiz. And if the quiz gets over soon, maybe I'll just look up in the chat box and see if there are any important questions to address. Okay, over to you, Pragnya.
Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful session, well coordinated one session. There are many compliments that we have got in the chat box. Thanks for that.
Maybe I can request one question for Anu to answer. There's a question from Lester about, is it common to sell rights at different prices for different customers based on the value returned to them, or is it a standard price? And what are your thoughts on those? Should it be, is there an ethics issue? Is there any other issue, or you get whatever is available on the table for the technology?
So what you're referring to is called perceived value pricing. And it is a very common thing. But let me give you an example and you will relate to it. So when you and I buy moisturizing cream or lotion, the base product, which is functional, is often the same. The difference as you go up the ladder is on fragrance. But there is a difference in the product. And that can make a difference of price from 100 to 400. So the efficacy remaining the same, you could price differently, but there is perceived value pricing is pretty much how most of us buy our products, essentially. So we are not sitting and comparing every day how our products are. I would still recommend, however, in the business that you are in, that you don't, you have to offer something different. It does not have to be in the intrinsic product. It can be in the service delivery that you do. So my recommendation would be to add something so that you price differently to different people.
Okay, great. So I think with that, Anu, we'll hand it over to Pragnya to take it ahead again.
Yes, thank you so much.
Arvind Chinchure is also here. Thank you. Yeah,
thanks
a lot.
Yeah. Thank you so much. With this, we would start with the part 2 of our today's session, which is the introduction to enabling policies. Next slide, please. We have with us Dr. Arvind Chinchure, who will be delivering this lecture. He is founder, QLeap Academy, ex-assistant vice president, innovation, Reliance Innovation Leadership Center, Reliance Industries, ex-CEO, Deshpande Startups. Dr. Chinchure, he is a PhD in physics and has 30 years of expertise in R&D, technology transfer, innovation, IP, startups, and policy. He is a visiting faculty at IISER Pune, serves on Manipal University, Jaipur's board, and is founder and CEO of QLeap Academy, which develops leaders in industry 4.0 and innovation. With this, I would request Dr. Chinchure to kindly share his slides and start with his lecture.
Yes, Pragya, first, can you hear me well?
Yes, you are audible. You are visible. If you could share your slides, I can tell you if they are full screen.
So you can.
Yes, they are full screen. They are full screen. Yeah.
Okay, Pragya, and what a brilliant lecture and session just before this. You know, I was just reflecting an industry marketing veteran currently who is in IIT in academia, Dr. Anu, and then Dr. Premnath, who is a hardcore scientist, academician, but both speaking on marketing is such a great combination to hear from these two experts on this. Dr. Anu, it's such a pleasure to hear. And of course, as always, Dr. Premnath is brilliant. Thank you for joining this. So before I begin my session, Premnath, because this is the last session, and I was so happy to see that 150 plus participants on Friday evening. Just imagine, the kind of a response that this particular webinar series has received. And let me start with acknowledging incredible work that Venture Center team has done. So we must all thank Dr. Premnath, Manisha, Mugdha, Pradnya, and there are many who have been working behind this. As this is the last session, I thought I need to commend and acknowledge and appreciate the wonderful work that you have done. So let's thank them. Of course, we must also thank UNIDO for creating this opportunity, and of course, Government of India for funding. So with this, let me start my session. I will speak on enablers, and I'll just try to focus on policy and process. But just now we heard, how do we promote some of the technologies that we have developed, and the importance of partnership and network that we just heard, and eventually what matters is people. So I will not touch last three, but of course I will touch and go a little bit deeper on enabling policies and processes. So recently, I'm sure many of you must have seen this particular article in Nature. It's a very, very interesting article, because whenever Steve Blank, who is a pioneer in science-based entrepreneurship, and he talks about lean startup and done some incredible work, he has written some very insightful and thought-provoking article in Nature. He talks about the very backbone of US innovation ecosystem. And this backbone of innovation ecosystem that exists is a very well calibrated ecosystem, and sometimes it's very difficult to replicate this in other countries. And there are key players in this ecosystem, that is government, which is funding, and then there are research universities, and then there is the external industry. And all these three coming together make this ecosystem, and eventually one of the economically prosperous country. And this ecosystem started building after World War II. And since then, there is always, we have seen that the way US has been able to lead in science, and of course, technology and science-based entrepreneurship. And in this whole that ecosystem, technology transfer plays a very, very important role, and it sits between the universities and startup and external world, whether it is venture investor or, for example, industry and NGOs, this thing. And this, article also talks about the impact of US universities, and just in 2023, US universities licensed 3,000 patents, 3,200 copyrights, and some other 1,600 licenses to technology startups and existing companies. And all this results into tech startups and predominantly science-based startup. And every year, 1,000 plus startups emerge from this this engine, innovation engine that US has been able to build after the World War II. And last, I think, 4 days, we have been listening why technology transfer matters. And I'm saying it matters more than ever. And I don't want to go, going through each and every element of why technology transfer matters. But to me, it matters more for India, and tech transfer offices and technology transfer licensing can immensely help in our national priorities, whether it is Make in India for manufacturing, whether it's a Digital India, and many other missions that India is on its journey, whether it's a hydrogen, renewable energy in the larger scale, or whether it's the semiconductors, or for that matter, electric vehicles and so on. So technology creation and technology transfer is more important today, and today because we see the geopolitical issues that we are experiencing and so on. But always we look at this as an opportunity for technology transfer, but there are challenges as well when we look at technology transfer. Because technology transfer is not an easy job. It's a very challenging process. Just we saw in a small way when this last session we just discussed about what it takes to promote and market the technology that gets generated in the universities. Because why it is challenging process? Because it's a multi-dimensional and multifaceted process, and there are multiple stakeholders from diverse background, and this is because tech transfer is nothing but a bridge between academia and commercial world. So because of these challenges and multi-dimensional process, success is not accidental. You can't say that, okay, I have a university and I have a good research, scientific research, and because I'm doing the scientific research and developing a technology, and because of this, the tech transfer should happen, and more startups and should get created, and of course, industry should accept and license this technology. That doesn't happen more often that we have seen. And therefore, it's extremely important for us to identify these critical dimensions or enablers and components or factors that will make technology transfer more effective and successful. So, then the question is, what are those foundational elements or enablers that is needed to ensure that technology transfer becomes both effective and successful? I'm sure, I think some of you might be thinking about what are these enablers. So I started reflecting on this. I think my first experience of technology development and transfer was somewhere late 90s and early 2000. That's where, after my PhD, I went to Netherlands. And my first assignment and project was to develop a technology, develop a know-how and a process, particularly for materials which can be used to measure temperatures between 1 Kelvin and 1 millikelvin. At that time, honestly, I was not really aware, what it takes to work with a startup. And on the extreme, left, Wim Bosch, who was a PhD in Netherlands, one of the top universities, he decided to build this particular device, and he received a European Union grant, and he worked with us in Leiden University, along with University of Delft, Technical University at Delft, and other universities at Twente, and so on. And this is the first experience, such a complex technology to develop and also ensure that it gets transferred and the technology leads to a product and the product gets into the market. And I'm so happy to share that in 2013, when I visited my lab in Netherlands, in Leiden, and I found that this technology is still being used, this product is still in the market, and perhaps this is the only product that exists in the world when it comes to simplified measurement of temperature between 1 Kelvin and 1 millikelvin. Just imagine as a scientist or as a technology creator, as a researcher, the joy to see a technology that gets into a company, and particularly for a startup, and that startup continues to work and grow. Then what? In the last 25 years, I have been with the industry research. I was part of a startup, worked again in a multinational company, Indian company, and I had a privilege to work with the World Bank to help our South Asian countries to build their capacity for intellectual property and innovation. Then recently, I was part of an international advisory board of a very big, massive project which was being done at 5 universities: University of Cambridge, 2 universities in Germany, 1 university in Sweden, and 1 university IIC in India. And this is purely, and this is something so valuable for us to look at these different IP models to accelerate sustainability transition. And there is a lot of literature, a lot of knowledge that has been created. In case you are interested, you should be able to see that, and that knowledge is accessible. And Dr. Premnath and I, we have been part of an advisory board for a technology transfer office of ARCI. And when all this experience of being directly and indirectly associated with IP and tech transfer, I was just looking at what is my deepest or profound insight about making tech transfer both effective and successful. And then this framework appeared. And this framework is very, very important because we were discussing about the complexity that exists in the technology transfer. It's not easy. It's a multidimensional function that one has to work with. So fundamentally, the model, the framework that one can look at to navigate all these complexities in tech transfer office is looking at the 5 key enablers. And I'm calling these 5 Ps, and they are deeply connected. And I have seen some of the great successes in tech transfer offices as a creator of a technology and also as a recipient of a technology when I was working in R&D, industry R&D labs and leading innovation and so on. So fundamentally, if tech transfer has to be successful and effective, we need to have a foundation that is a foundational enabler is a policy. We need to have a policy. Then we need to have a engine that works to make that policy and intent and vision, make that happen, and that's a process. But just having policy and processes doesn't help. There has to be promotions that needs to be done, and we saw the glimpse in the previous session. And of course, we need to develop a deep partnership because tech transfer office is a bridge to not only connects the internal stakeholders within the academic institution or research institute, but the entire external world that includes entrepreneurs, that includes industry, that includes NGO, government, and so on. And that ability to build that partnership, that bridge, that is going to really, really help to make it an effective tech transfer. But fundamentally, we need a right set of people. And one of the reasons why we are having this 5-day webinar and in future in-person workshop for technology transfer professionals is building that capacity and capability of people. And since it's a multifaceted group, we need all kinds of people, right from good researchers to marketing, IP professionals, and then outreach and legal professionals and so on. It's extremely important that people make this effort or success, and sometimes in spite of having good institution, in spite of having good technology, they are not able to succeed. So fundamentally, we are looking at these interconnected pillars of technology transfer, 5Ps. And today, what I will do is I will just look at, we'll just briefly go through policy, and then we will go through the processes. And hopefully, if time permits, I'm not sure, we will get into promotion, partnership, and people. So this is the framework. If you look at as IP professionals, IP leaders, if you look at from the lens of this particular framework, I think things become very clear. Things become very easier to focus and make things happen. So, as I said, today I'm just
Arvind, you may need to go a little faster because
yes, please.
you'll run out of time, I think. Yeah.
Yes, the IP 653. So let's look at policy. And one of the great examples of a successful policy impact is NCL. So in NCL, if you look at the first patent that was granted in US is early 1990s, and then there was a series of 25 such US patents that emerged from NCL, and that created a patent portfolio. And the impact of this is at that time, I'm talking about 1990, mid 90s, and early 2000 is it's unbelievable that there are $15 billion of income through patent licensing, fees, royalties, and consulting. Look at what India has shown the possibility at almost 20 years back. And I would say this is something which is a great example of communicating policy and defining policy and making sure that this policy becomes an important pillar, important priority for NCL. And that's where I think Dr. Mashalkar, when he took over as the director of National Chemical Laboratory, he said in his first address that he said we need to change our paradigm from publish or perish to a patent, publish, and transfer. And this kind of a priority, this kind of a communication and importance made a very big contribution, not only to NCL and CSIR, but this completely changed. Look at the impact of this. The impact is that many multinational companies came and they started their R&D center and they started creating IP for their parent company. I will not get into this, but I just wanted to share that the power of policy and communication of policy, and as a leader, how you communicate and then make things happen and the real impact happens. So why do we need policy? Because this is something which is very fundamental. Arguably, this is the most foundational thing that universities need to have. So the policy is nothing but a rule book, a constitution, I would say, and this gives us brings that clarity and predictability in entire process of IP creation or technology development all the way to commercialization. So let me share how do we create that constitution or a rule book for or within the university for researchers so that they have that clarity and predictability in everything tech transfer does. So I had prepared a manual how to prepare an IP policy as a part of a World Bank project. I also did a manual for tech transfer office. How do we create tech transfer office in the universities? So generally, the IP policy is structured with some preamble and context, then why we want to have IP policy, which can continue to change with time. What is the coverage and enforcement of IP policy? And then, of course, you can introduce what IP, description about various IPs. But fundamentally, it covers three things. But of course, it can have many more things. The first thing is how is the governance that will happen when it comes to management of IP as a part of a policy document. Then the second most important is how are you managing intellectual property, right from invention disclosure all the way to ownership, third-party ownership, and multiple ways from creation all the way to the commercialization. And third component is what is the policy for tech transfer. So we'll briefly go through this. So IP core function of the IP policies define that who owns the intellectual property that gets created, how are you going to protect, and how are you going to manage IP for the university. For example, there should be a clear policy on who owns the IP that gets created when universities' resources are being used. For example, one of the elements of the ownership between institution versus creator is that university IP, as per this thing, inventions that are generated or in the university using significant university resources are owned by the university. And of course, you can have multiple versions of this if when and how creator can own a particular IP when a researcher is working in the university. And of course, what are the obligations and processes for invention disclosure? Because that's the first step. What is the protection procedure, and what are the rights, responsibilities of inventors, particular researchers, and how are we going to handle IP in collaboration, sponsored research? So all these elements, I'm not getting into the what should be the policy guideline, because if you can look at every university, every institution has a IP policy. You can just download and you will get. And in case you have access to AUTM or Autumn's membership, you can get complete manual. How do you structure your IP policy? And this is the reason why we want to have is this is the one which will give legal clarity and also provides the guidelines for inventors to get their incentives. Similarly, see, IP is a protection of your intellectual assets that you are creating. Now, next is how do I translate and commercialize this IP into something that gets utilized by startups and companies. So that's where the policies that related to technology transfer comes into the picture. And of course, we can have multiple elements in the tech transfer policy that includes what are the guidelines for negotiating licensing terms, what are the requirements for licensing, reporting and compliance, and calculating and distribution of net revenues. How are we going to provide or get the value when spin-out companies happen in terms of equity or a license. And I'm very happy to share that Dr. Premnath was talking about one of the very important aspect of tech transfer policy is that when it comes to the inventors who want to license the technology from the same institution, the policy has to be very flexible when it comes to licensing term. We can't have a very stringent policy that it will be only exclusive or exclusive or non-exclusive, or sometimes we say that, we will give you technology, but will not assign and so on. It's very extremely important for inventors to create the entity, create a new venture and get into the entrepreneurship. And that will happen only when you have that flexibility and in your policy document. Of course, Dr. Premnath can offer deeper insights from his practice. So the most important or another important element of the policy is what happens, how inventors and researchers get incentives how the revenues are going to be distributed, and it has to be very clearly articulated and put it in the policy document. And generally, what we have seen when it comes to revenue distribution is generally 40 to 60% goes after deducting everything, expenses, 40 to 60% to inventor, and rest goes to the department and institution. But you should have a clarity about what is that net revenue, what are the expenses that you are considering for deduction, what processes you are allowing inventors to, if there are multiple inventors, what are those processes to allocate their shares, and many other things. So this is also a very important component that you need to include in your policy document. The policy is a very, very dry thing, so I wanted to bring in a little bit of case studies so that you continue to remain engaged. So Bob Langer, or Robert Langer, is a well-known legend in science. He's from MIT, and you will be surprised to see that he has been able to have 1,600 research papers, almost 1,500 issued and pending patents worldwide. He has been able to license and sub-license close to 400 technologies to pharmaceutical, chemical, and biotechnology and medical devices companies. And just look at the impact that he has created. I was just looking at what could be the value of his portfolio companies that were generated or created from his lab. And you'll be surprised that 39 out of 40 companies where his technology was either licensed or it spun out as a startup, later either acquired or exist, the collective market value is $50 billion. Just imagine that a professor in MIT can create companies worth $50 billion. So fundamentally, if you ask this question, why something like this can happen in MIT? Because that their clarity and predictability that exists in the policy, and with that clarity, when a scientist wants to commercialize the technology, and with this foundational policy that exists, then things become easier. So the next very important thing is, we looked at when IP gets created, what should be the policy guidelines for IP created assets. Then we looked at protection and management, and then we said, okay, what happens in the transaction between when transaction happens from a technology to the third party, whether it's a startup. So one very important element that you just saw at the beginning, that the power, the most important element of US ecosystem is that there is a federal grant that comes to universities. Universities do research and develop scientific knowledge and technology, and that gets spun out in the form of a company, or part of this can get into licensing the industry and other agencies. So there has to be a clarity about if someone from the a creator or inventor wants to become an entrepreneur. So there has to be a clarity in terms of policy, and here what matters is what kind of approvals that are needed for an inventor before forming a spin-out, or what kind of guidelines universities have when it comes to equity stake, or how much it is negotiable and flexible, or what could be royalties and all other elements. And is there a possibility for inventors or researchers to get an access to incubation and mentorship and that's what you see in venture center, that anyone from NCL wants to be an entrepreneur. There exists incubation, mentorship, and acceleration, and all this. And this spin-out policy creates a pathway for commercialization and eventually leads to the impact that we are seeking. But there are certain situations where the faculty members or researchers did not spin out a startup or a company based on their own invention, but they may be interested to become an entrepreneur or a student become an entrepreneur with the technology that gets created in the university. So we should have a clarity about what kind of a policy that one should have to encourage faculty members and students to pursue entrepreneurship. And again, what happens if a faculty decides to do this? Can we give a sabbatical? Can we have a say partly he works with the university and partly works with the new venture? And what kind of a conflict of interest that one has to look at? I think this is a very, very important part of overall commercialization or activity, so that whatever gets generated, created is utilized and creates the possible impact. I know because of the time, I'm going a little bit faster because Premnath wants this to be, because there's so much that can be covered in this policy. One can go into each and every element of this and discuss, because these are like guidelines. Each university, each institution, each group has their own environment and context, and based on that, and they are at a different stage of evolution. And based on that, you can actually define these policy guidelines. Conflict of interest is another very important aspect that we need to consider while developing policy guidelines, particularly a faculty wants to pursue entrepreneurial venture. So what kind of a conflicts that can arise due to different roles researcher will have in a new company or a new venture? What kind of issues that can arise from financial matters? And also, many times it's very important that if there is no clarity for a faculty, so what kind of disclosures that that faculty needs to share and gets approved, so that there is integrity in everything that happens. And of course, there are many other elements that you need to look at when it comes to conflicts or resolving the conflicts, or bringing clarity to potential conflicts between researcher and the institution. And this basically helps in maintaining this integrity, objectivity, and the trust between institution and the company, the third party, new venture, and the person, the faculty, the researcher who is going to be part of this institution and possibly partly or fully working for the venture. So just to close, I tried to share some of the important key dimensions of policy and what should go into the policy. So this basically policy should really help about why part of this and what part of the tech transfer, IP and tech transfer. That clarity has to come through this IP and tech transfer policy and other dimensions within these policy elements. So, so just take a pause, and I wanted to make you think a little bit, reflect for a minute or so that how clear, accessible, and comprehensive are your current IP and commercialization policies that are relevant to all stakeholders, whether it's faculty, students, staff, and others. Just a couple of minutes, reflect, and if possible, you can write it down in the chat. Before we go to next. So we still have 17 minutes. So. Because this is the most foundational thing that we need to have in the institution before even we think of building a very effective and successful technology transfer.
Can you repeat your question in terms of what you wanted people to write? Did you want people to write anything in chat box?
Yes. So what I wanted is because participants, all of you who just went through last 15 minutes about importance of policy, why we need policy, what should get into the policy. And I'm just asking this question to reflect is, are the policies that exist in your institution, are they clear? Are they accessible to everyone within the institution? And is it comprehensive enough so that there are no ambiguities for anyone who is either a creator of IP or wants to spin out a company and other things? In case you want to share your reflections, if not, I think. Because I can't see the chat box, but...
Yeah, I think we've got... we've only got questions. Some say no as an answer. Some say yes. Few higher education institutes have clearly defined IP and TT policy, but many don't have. That's from Anand. Lester says, not from an IP perspective, but because the organization I work for is growing, policies are being developed and restructured to accommodate the growth. Others say partially, yes. No. How do we get any comprehensive document of the same? The question, partially, no defined policies, have IP policy. CSIR policy is quite comprehensive, but inventors would not be usually happy. Clarity is not there so far in our institute policy, at least precisely. Spin out is a new concept, which they got exposed to only recently in last year. Time-bound based policy is not there. Yeah. So I think
very interesting.
Answers.
Yeah. Yes, Premnath, please go ahead. Huh?
Yeah. No, I think you can continue because I think there are, as it comes along, if there's something more, I'll tell you. Yeah.
Correct. So it's very important that some institutions don't have a policy, some have partial policy, even some institutions have comprehensive policy, but inventors may not be happy or that. So it's very interesting to see what is the current situation within the organization when it comes to policies, which is so foundational before we aspire to become a leader in technology creator and create that impact. So the next important thing is having a policy, having a clear, comprehensive, predictable, working in action policy. And of course, it has to change with time as we learn. And also it has to have certain flexible elements that we discussed. But the next important part of these interconnected enablers is processes. The processes are nothing but engine. Like any engine, if that engine has to really work, it certainly needs fuel and well-tuned components. or paths to the engine. Unless that is fixed, we will not have very effective and successful tech transfer possibility. So let me again give another example just to highlight and break from a monotonous, boring policy-related things. Is look at Sir Gregory Winter, who is Nobel Prize winner, and it's so fascinating. When I was in Cambridge, we wanted to have a big conference, and we decided to invite Professor Greg Winter. And I was amazed to see 400 plus patents. He founded 2 unicorn companies, billion-dollar companies, and his IP had generated more than billion euros in royalties. See, if this kind of an impact has to happen from creation to new ventures to royalties, not only the policies has to be predictable, clear, and working policies, but also the processes has to be very, very important and very clear. So, when we define the processes, for those who are not very familiar with the entire value chain from idea to commercialize, and what kind of decisions and processes that we need to, or procedures that we need to adopt, and what kind of checks and balances that we need to have. So once there is an idea, there's a proof of concept, and then reduction to practice, technology, and commercialize. So in this entire process, there has to be multiple processes to capture the inventions that are being created in the labs. So having the process of invention disclosure submission, then the ability to evaluate those invention disclosure and take a decision whether provisional or full application, then deciding whether we need to go for a foreign applications or global application. And when technology is developing, commercializing, there will be more ideas. How do I continue to create more and more invention disclosures? And when this happens, there has to be a process for creating prior art searches, novelty searches, and of course, freedom to operate and freedom to practice. Particularly, this is more when it comes to higher TRL and commercialization. So every step you need a process. So just for a clarity, the policy again talks about why part and what part. But it doesn't generally cover how part. How are we going to make things happen as a part of IP and tech transfer office? So for me, there are 4 stages in terms of processes. I will quickly go. We have 9 minutes left. Stage 1 is even something that gets triggered or before it comes to tech transfer office is the processes for creation and identification of the inventions or technology that professors or faculty members or researchers are creating. So we need to have a very, very clearly defined invention disclosure. Of course, there has to be awareness and training to researchers when and what to disclose. And it should be easily accessible. Sometimes it should be on the website so that quickly they can fill this invention disclosure. Once the invention disclosure is filled, it comes to IP and technology transfer office. There has to be a process for quick assessment of that invention disclosure. And here, the process has to be so fast that suppose invention disclosure comes within a week, you should be able to respond with the initial assessment. And once that happens, then you should be able to talk to the researcher and say that, can you tell me more about your invention, so that with that clarity, you can go to next stage of a decision whether one need to protect the intellectual property or that invention disclosure, the invention that is disclosed in the disclosure form. And then requires the process for evaluation of this invention. And here you can take external experts and their opinions and analysis. Then, of course, one should look at prior art search and whether it's a novel, whether it is meets the patentability criteria. And that process has to be very clear and should happen very predictability, and it should continue to repeat for every invention disclosure. Then there has to be a decision, whether we should file, not to file, keep it trade secret, or confidential information, or a know-how, or if you have to file, where need to file. So that kind of a decision has to be very clear for that invention disclosure. And once that happens, decision happens, then the process for filing and managing the entire prosecution till the invention gets converted into a patent or a registered copyright and so on. Now that we have a process for capturing the invention, tapping that invention, the next is protection. The next step in this process is now we have to take this IP asset to the market. That's the commercialization part. And briefly, we discussed, we had a session on technology marketing and outreach. Of course, I don't have to repeat that. And we did discuss about creating these compelling marketing materials the way, Dr. Premnath shared summaries and presentation. And of course, once you do the outreach, find the potential partners or partners, ensure that there is a right process for confidentiality management, evaluation of partners and due diligence, then the process for negotiation, agreement, finalization. And in case of spin out, then there is a process for spin out support. So these are very important processes that you need to cover when it comes to faster, quicker, effective mechanism for converting that invention into a commercializable and commercializing or transferring that or licensing that to a startup or a company. But the processes don't stop at that. The next is we need to continuously monitor. See, the signing off is not the last. After the signing off or after licensing deal, so we need to look at how do we monitor the compliances and whatever agreed milestones that has been decided in the agreement. Are the payments and royalty payments are coming on time? Is there a regular communication and what kind of a communication we should have to licensees and this thing? Then we need to have a process for revenue collection and distribution within the institution to the inventor, to department, and to the overall institution. But lastly, but very important is we need to really look at, and I've seen many times we don't do that as a part of a tech transfer, is measuring the impact and reporting that impact, because this is so important for you to show that whatever investment that has gone into the creation has created that measurable impact whether it's creation of jobs or environment or social and so on. I think these are most important processes that we need to really work and have in place within the organization. So as I said, if engine has to work most efficiently, you need to have a well-defined process. But having processes is not enough. There has to be consistency. There has to be responsiveness between different stakeholders. It has to be a transparent process so that the trust is built between researchers, partners, and tech transfer office. And you have to continuously optimize this so that you are going to make the entire process of commercialization, meaningful, trustworthy process. So a quick reflection. I think I'm just now towards the closure. So I just wanted to have a reflection. What is the status of? Are there any bottlenecks that exist in your institution when it comes to invention disclosure to deal closing? What kind of challenges that exist in your institution, and are the processes sufficient enough right from invention disclosure to deal closing? While you continue to reflect and think about this and respond on a chat in the chat box. So I wanted to just quickly close, because I did mention I started with NCL as an example, great example, when Dr. Mashurkar was leading innovators or inventors or scientists or technologists like Dr. Shivaram, creating such an impact not only to the industry, but they created a entirely new industry for India. So I thought I will close this session with an Indian example. I'm taking this example of Indian Institute of IIT Roorkee. Dr. Anu talked about IIT Bombay or IIT Madras. They are very, very mature in terms of this. But IIT Roorkee is something that has seen a phenomenal transformation in the last 3 years. So just to give the kind of R&D budget or R&D outlay they have in the last 5 years, and you see a step jump from 20. So somewhere, they started 5 years back, 100 crore rupees of research budget to 150, and suddenly jumped to 300, and today they have a budget of 500 crores for their research. And when I asked, where does this money coming from? Is it just the government grants? It is not. More than 60% of the money for research is coming from the industry, but not just the large industry, but small industry. This is something which is, I would say, an incredible growth that one can have. And they not only have policies and they support policy, but they have multiple options to support their researchers. And they have faculty initiation grant. They have also grant for enhancing TRL, which Dr. Premnath was talking about. And they have multiple options for an entrepreneur to invest in research or work on a research that is relevant to industry. So look at the patents that have been granted to IIT Roorkee in the last 5 years. In 2018, 3 granted patents for that year. 2022 is 30, and 2023 is 148 patents that were granted to IIT Roorkee. This is an incredible example that you can see that transformation can happen. It's not just IIT Bombay or IIT Madras where you see all these activity, but though it's an old institution, but a young institution can also create technology and transfer the technology and also create startups. So if you look at, this is my last slide. So if you look at what they have been able to do in the last 3 years, I'm just giving you statistics for the last 3 years. So they developed new products, services, and processes is 157. Out of 157, 74 of these went to the market or is being used by industry. Just imagine 50% of the work that they did is being used in the industry or it's a part of the market. They have a collaboration with other academic, it is almost 1,200, national collaboration with industry. They executed in the last is almost 3,000. But more than that, I think what I really liked was last 1 year, they had 147, 140 plus patents granted. And out of this, 29 technology transfer happened, and there were 52 faculty members created entrepreneurship. I think this is, something we need to really look at. What made IIT Roorkee to achieve this kind of thing. And one person that I know is Dr. Akshay Vivedi. He comes with a very unique background. He has worked in the industry. He's a top-notch researcher. Currently, he's a dean for sponsored research and industrial consultancy, and he co-founded a company and 200 research papers and holds 13 patents out of 8 technology transfer. Just imagine if a right person in a right position and creating, bringing his all that experience of 25 years. I'm sure, I think with right policies and processes, transformation is possible in India, even in IIT Roorkee, which is in a remote part. So just, concluding, for an effective and successful transfer of technology, it is not about great research. It's about mastering and implementing these 5 enablers, and having that clarity, efficiency, and collaboration, and empowering individuals makes a very, very important contribution. And I'm just saying, concluding, I would say that anyone who is in IP, who is in tech transfer, your work is so vital in translating knowledge into real world impact for India. Let's work together to build our capacity and capability and contribute for the impact of India. Let me stop here.
Thank you. I think I'll let Pragnya throw up the questions first.
I would first like to thank Dr. Chinchure, and then we can have questions. Thank you, Dr. Chinchure, for telling this dry subject in such a interesting way. There were so many questions. The chat box was buzzing. And thanks for sharing your 5P model. I'm pretty sure people are looking forward to learn the other 3 P's also some other time.
Okay, so there are quite a few questions, but I think we'll take a few since we are out of time, and I don't want, I think after this, probably Pragnya is going to throw up this feedback form, which people have to fill up. I think one of the things in that feedback form is you have to type your name correctly so that you can get your e-certificate in the right name. So please keep that in mind, all of you, right? So Arvind, there was a question from the couple of people, but they wanted to understand, when so many people don't have, universities don't seem to have good policies, or some have partial policies and so on and so forth. Would it be a good idea to have a central policy, right, which everybody uses? What is your view? I have a view as well, but...
See, there is an advantage for an institution to have something like this, but I would say it may not function the way it should function, because as an institution, it is your intent, or it's your vision and mission to be an institution which will not only create technology but commercialize technology. And each institution is different. Each institution is located in a different geographies, the kind of a culture that exists within that institution. And that institution may be at a central, say, for example, CSR is still homogeneous, may not be as homogeneous as if I compare, say, NCL with other institutions. But just imagine UGC, Premnath. If UGC creates a policy and all universities have to apply, I doubt, a small university in a small place will never be able to even comprehend, forget about execution. So what as an institution can do is provide a manual or a guideline how to develop policy, number one. Number two is invest in right set of people to create even 1 or 2 people working in IP or IP office, or tech transfer office, will give them an opportunity to learn and also slowly understand and create a very initial, very simple policy which can be implemented possibly this is my point of view. Premnath, but you have a better view possibly because you spend a lot of time in this area.
No, I'll just add an example. I agree with you. Basically, the challenge is, so typically all policies have first a guiding principle with which they start, and those guiding principles are based on the organization's overall organization's mandate, and
Yes.
it draws from that, and then the guiding principles are rolled out into specific clauses and so on and so forth. So we take an example. For example, a typical US university will put the highest premium on dissemination of knowledge and teaching, right? So in such a situation, you can understand that they will not place, typically most licenses that they do not involve trade secrets, right? Because they have to teach people, right?
Yes.
So typically it involves essentially IP, right? Now, on the other hand, consider an institution where teaching is not the primary objective, but say development of technology is the primary objective for socioeconomic development. They can take a very different view on how they treat know-how, right? So an organization like NCL, which is a government lab, although by the way it's academic as well, so there's a mixed issue there, but it can prioritize things very differently, right? So therefore, I think it's quite important that every organization should, there are many templates, many examples available on the internet, and one can go and pick on it. But it's important to apply your mind as an organization to see what are the principles you want to bring to the forefront when you write such a policy, and it should reflect the priorities of that organization. So that's all I wanted to add over there. But that question, I think, was from Akshay Joshi and Anuradha Chitnis. Sorry, I'm not. Since you asked a few questions for reflection, I'm not able to find all the questions now. so bear with me over there, right? So I think that's one set of questions which were there. There were some questions which I tried to address online in terms of as they were coming. So let me just ask you to talk about it. There was one question also about how you engage with industry partners, at what stage, and what is to be disclosed, not disclosed at different stages. I mean, it's a slightly different question from the policy aspects, but from the processes aspects, right? What would be a good practice that people should follow without disclosing too much, at the same time getting the job done in terms of getting people interested, and disclosing as needed under some kind of agreement? Yeah.
So I think you will give more deeper insight on this, Premnath. See, fundamentally, look at the challenge with tech transfer. One side, I need to connect with an industry, right, and make that industry excited about that technology, which means that I need to share that something which will make third party want to explore that possibility. I'm talking about not a situation where industry and academia already has a collaboration and partnership. But if I want to sell something, if I want to license something, I need to disclose enough. I'm not saying that you have to disclose everything. You have to, and of course, if it is already you have filed provisional application or filed a full application, I think you can be more confident to disclose certain things. That disclosure, as you and Anu were discussing, that disclosure should help industry to evaluate and start having the next level of discussion. That's the level one. Second is, once industry shows that there is an interest in this particular technology, then you can start with simple NDAs to begin with, then exchange more details. And once once there is an agreement, then you get into definitive agreement and so on. But I would say that is there a kind of a litmus test? You can share up to this or not this. It's not that easy. But I would say don't reveal everything, but reveal enough to excite or create that interest. And then once there is an interest, have the right agreements in place so that there is a full disclosure happens. That's my.
I think John, in his talk, gave an answer which I think is relevant here, which is that typically when you're talking to industry, what they want to know is what was done, what are the benefits, and so on and so forth. They don't necessarily want to know every detail of how it was done, right? And that is something which is typically the subject matter of the invention, right? So you can choose to limit that aspect, right? So for example, if it's a process technology with a certain catalyst, the real key here is the catalyst A, and that other than that, everything else can be discussed, right? And including all the benefits and so on and so forth. And that I think is, I mean, it's very similar to what you had to say as well. So there's a question from Shweta Mishra, which has got to do with, of course, there are a couple of people, by the way, who read your book and attended some classes with you. So they mentioned that. I think the book behind you, right? The New Age organization, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah. But they wanted to understand how, you know, how is an invention done with by a guide along with a student, right? How is that treated in terms of inventorship, in terms of revenue sharing, and so on and so forth in a policy?
See, it is not about how you look at guide and student and how that should get into inventorship. See, inventorship fundamentally is it's a legal aspect. Who should become an inventor or who should not become an inventor is there is a legal guidelines. So when I was putting down this in the part of a process is I clearly refer to who can become an inventor, who cannot become an inventor. So just fundamentally, someone who has made a contribution towards that idea, substantially enhancing that idea, is bound to become a inventor. So, but sometimes in the institutions, what happens is, at least I can imagine that both guide and student can be an inventor. But so a student's friend does some experiments in the lab. Say, for example, in research institutes, right? Somebody has some equipment. And simple is, I want to done X-ray test or do the X-rays on a new material or material that I'm synthesizing. If someone who has just done the X-ray of a material doesn't become an inventor, so there are clear guidelines, and that should be referred as a part of a policy that who can become this thing. That's number one. Step one. Step two, that's the awareness. What are the legal requirements and criteria? Because if you don't follow that, the patent that gets granted can be invalidated very easily if we are not followed. Somebody who need not be an inventor becomes an inventor, or someone should be invented doesn't become an inventor. It creates a situation of invalidation of patent. That's number two. As a tech transfer office or IP, so we have to have a form where people have to write why they are inventor. Why? Suppose if there are 5 people as inventors, what is their contribution? Where? And look at because we understand better legally, why this is important, and then decide who should be inventor and who should not be inventor. Of course, Shweta, I think I need to understand better from which context you are asking this question. But this is just a general guideline. So inventorship is a legal thing, and there has to be inventorship form that needs to be filed and evaluated before it gets into the patent filing or application.
Yeah, I think that's the policy governing revenue sharing will be separate, right? First is
separate
determination of who is the inventor out there, So, for example, the US law tends to define an inventor as one who contributed to the conception of the idea and not necessarily to the reduction to practice, right?
Yes.
Whereas in the Indian law, it's a little broader in scope. So if you were a lab hand who was helping execute a particular experiment without conceptualizing it in the US, you may not be an inventor.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the definition there. Now, after that, once you have defined the inventor, the policy defines whether or if all the inventors
Yes.
will be treated equally in the licensing also. Right? So I think, Arvind, I'll have to stop here. Pragna has given me the red signal. I think I'll let her take it over. She wants to capture some testimonials as well or get some inputs from people as well. So thank you very much for this very interesting talk and putting all your experiences together for us in this session as well. So thank you, and over to you, Pragna.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chinchure. Thank you, Dr. Premnath. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to UNIDO team and UNIDO for facilitating this entire webinar series where through their FLCTD project, a heartfelt thanks to all the UNIDO team for being so supportive all along. And we are also going to have in-person workshops in the month of June. So stay tuned for that. It was a great journey, I would say, for 5 days. With this, I announce closure of our 5 days webinar. Thank you so much.